Hi, Lexi. Thank you so much
Hi, of
for taking the time to be interviewed for Fashion Revolution Canada.
course. So
Um,
happy to be here.
can you please maybe just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background and design journey so far?
Yeah, so Alexa Villegas, that's my name. I was born in Toluca, Mexico, which is around an hour away from Mexico City. I moved to Vancouver Island when I was 3 years old, so I pretty much grew up in Canada. As a little kid, I've always dressed myself, even though my mom told me she didn't like some of my outfits, like she let me do my thing because that was just like what I loved doing. I always dreamed of having my own brand of like designing things that I wanted to make and to show them off to other people. I didn't go to fashion school. I went to school for like entrepreneurship and marketing and more like fashion theory. So all of the designing is self-taught, or my dad has taught me some things, and I also have some mentors right now that I intern for. Their names is Zoe and Angela from Sample Garments, and they have taught me a lot of like the technical skills. Fabric choices are very important to me, whether that's like sourcing them from like a place that they're going to be thrown away or used in the garbage, and putting them into new life is very important. And I've always really loved the sustainability aspect of fashion because there's so much textile waste. So I try to use up what we have made already. And honestly, like everything that I design, I want to make the person who sees it or who's wearing it feel something, or for it to tell a story instead of just making like garments for people to buy. I love to make things that make people feel something or tell an important story.
Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, your kind of big moment recently was Toronto Fashion Week. Could you
Yes.
maybe talk a bit about that and how that experience was for you?
Yeah. So the experience was really, it went by really quickly. I had told myself in January that I wanted to do a show for myself that year. And so in August, I applied to it and I had like my concepts already kind of thought about. And then when I got accepted, it was kind of just like go time because it was like mid-September that I got accepted. And then the show was November 16th. So 2 months like turnaround time to make everything. So that whole experience was really beautiful. I quit my job to focus on it. So I was unemployed for those 2 months and just was sewing every single day. I wanted to involve a lot of like my culture and my heritage and my family. So like they inspired a lot of it. For this specific collection, because it was my first one, I had a very clear like storyline that I wanted to convey. So, and I honestly think that's kind of what my design process is anyways, is I like to think about a story or like a theme that I'm trying to convey to the public, and that theme kind of influences what I am designing. This collection was inspired by my family and like roots and culture and heritage. So like the first five looks were inspired by like the market ladies in the markets of Mexico. And then the second half was like a modern Latino. So it was like what modern people nowadays would wear if they still had that Latin influence. And then the last section was the family section, which was inspired by like my family and like any aesthetics that they loved, what like my dad used to wear in the 80s, like all those types of things. My models were all really amazing. It was just like a really good, like healthy community. A lot of them were people of color as well, some Latin people, and from like all walks of life. Yeah, it was honestly just a really beautiful day, and you could tell that the people really got the emotion from what I was trying to convey. Like almost the whole room was crying after the end of my show, and it was the closing show too. So it was like a very big special moment for me and for the people who were watching. And I got a lot of messages afterwards from Latin people being like that they really related to it and it really like hit home for them. It was a lot to do with missing your roots or missing that part of you when you grow up in a new place because you're an immigrant family. So like that was really special to know that like my art can convey something like that and that people can actually get what I'm trying to say just through something that's like physical.
You mentioned last time we talked that you use natural dyeing to make parts of your collection. Can you
Yeah.
talk a bit about that process and what you used?
Yeah. So again, to tie in back to the cultural thing, I really wanted to integrate some sort of natural dyeing. One of my really close friends, Emma Piercy, she's a natural dye specialist. She's like grown like plants onto clothes and stuff like that. It's another aspect of sustainability, using natural dyes instead of something synthetic. And so I used dried hibiscus flower, which is called Jamaica in Mexico, and we use it to make tea and like fresh waters. I grew up drinking that all the time instead of like lemonade, for example. And it has a really rich purple red color, so I thought it would be perfect to like tie in a lot of white colors that I had going on to give them a little bit more life. So my friend Emma helped me through the whole process of dyeing. So you have to like prep the fabric with this chemical called alum to make sure that the natural dye sticks a little bit more. And you have to use natural fibers to dye because anything polyester won't actually grab the dye from the flower because it is natural. So I only used fabrics that were like cotton, linen. Yeah, we dyed them overnight. We like kept them in the bucket. But one thing that we didn't foresee was the pH of the water had to be like very specific. So when we tried to rinse out some of the garments, they turned purple, like a dark purple, just because of the pH of the water, like wasn't vibing with the dye from the flower. So ultimately, we re-dyed a lot of them to go back to red. And then I just like dried them and then I didn't rinse them at all and I didn't wash them because I wanted this certain pink color. So like the next steps in the dyeing would have to be like trying to figure out the right pH to keep that red color instead of it turning to purple. Because even if you steam it right now or like or iron any of the pieces, they will turn purple. So it'll definitely be like experimental, but the way that they all dried was super cool. Like some of them had streaks and the embroidery got dyed, so it all was like different colors, and it really made every piece one of a kind because you couldn't really foresee how the color was going to take to the certain like fabric that I had thrifted. It was a really fun experience and like the colors turned out really beautiful. So
So onto that, you told me that you designed your whole collection on a budget of under $200,
yeah.
which is incredible.
Yeah. The budget of $200 pretty much only pertains to the materials and the fabrics. To participate in Toronto Fashion Week, it costs you $3,000. The hair extensions, because I had long hair for all my models, that is something that the designer has to provide. So I paid probably $4,000 like to be in Fashion Week for all like the hair and makeup additional things. But for the collection itself, if you take away all those elements, was really only $200. We just went one day to the Value Village at Yonge and Dundas, and I just got like a whole basket full of curtains and bed sheets, like any type of embroidery or pieces that I thought would like work in well to each other. And that came to like under $100 for all the fabrics for pretty much the entire thing. And I still had extra left over after the collection. So I really saved a lot of the money in the materials for sure. You can really do that if you look at thrift, if you look at bed sheets, and people never think to use bed sheets, but ultimately they're just big yards of fabric. So highly recommend looking through like old bed sheets or curtains and stuff like that.
Cool. What does, at its core, what does the collection mean to you?
I was one of two Latina girls in my high school. It was hard to relate to some people just because of the different circumstances that we were in, because my parents had to start from zero and they worked so hard to like get to where we were. And everyone around me had that generational wealth or those generations of their family that had already lived there for so long. So having that was difficult, not being able to relate to people, and also feeling a lot of the time that I wasn't Canadian, but I also wasn't Mexican. It's like difficult to find what bubble you kind of fit into because of those circumstances. And so this collection was really me tapping into that Mexican side of my life. And especially because I've moved to Toronto, I'm far away from my parents. I don't really speak Spanish to anyone other than my parents over the phone. So this was an opportunity for me to really bring that piece of me to Toronto to in like my life where I don't have my family surrounding me. As a kid, I always was jealous of my friends who had their cousins and their grandparents like coming to their dance recitals and their sports. This show was kind of my conjunction of all those moments that I thought that I missed out on, and I kind of made that moment for myself. So I had like five cousins fly in from Mexico to see it, and they were all watching it on the live stream back home. So feeling that like support from them was really amazing, and feeling how connected I was to my family and how it brought them together. And we were all together in Toronto, which never would have happened otherwise. So it was just like a really big, crazy moment for all of us, very like emotional, very meaningful. And I even had elements in the show that were tied to my family. Like the two leather bomber jackets that I had made were what my dad used to do in Mexico when he was a young adult. And before we moved here, that's what he did as a living. So his best friend still does that in Mexico's. So we got those made in Mexico and brought them here. So that was a piece of my dad. My aunt who crochets, she crocheted a lot of little cross accessories to add into the looks, which kind of gave it that familiar and like artisanal kind of touch. And then a lot of like Mexican artisanal art is very beautiful. So it was nice to have that element in there. And just to have my whole family there was honestly the best part.
I love that must be such a good feeling and also just so good that you're doing this work and hopefully like inspiring a whole bunch of other Latina or Latino kids across
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah.
Um, wow, that's so nice. Okay. Last question, bit more broad, but what do you think makes you a fashion revolutionary?
I took some time to think about this yesterday, but ultimately I the name of my brand means a sack of love, and that's what my grandparents called me. And like I think I have a very big heart and a lot of love to give to people and to the world, and I love to convey that through clothing and art and like conceptual photo shoots for the show. Like every little detail was very thought out, down to the audio, to the colors, to the people that were walking it. The person who sang in my show, she's also someone who left Mexico and started like from the bottom on her own. So I think it's more about collaborating with people and different artists to bring like beautiful things to life. So instead of having people work for me, we're working together as a collective to make something beautiful because that's ultimately when you get the most beautiful things is working with other people together and bouncing off each other's ideas instead of me telling people what I want and what is best because bringing those all those ideas together is what really makes it beautiful. And I think all the stuff that I do has a lot of story and a lot of craftsmanship in it, which I feel is rare a lot of days where people start brands just to sell garments and they will sell like in mass productions or they will sell to adhere to buying it for a trip or a one night out type of thing. But I really feel that the things that I make it may not be as often as other brands that are releasing, 2 to 3 collections a year. I feel everything that I want to release and bring out to the world has a deep story to it or has some sort of meaning behind it that is impactful or like educates people on certain things.
A great answer.
Yeah.
Great final question. Thank you so much, Lexi. It was so nice talking to you.
Yes,
We are all
thank
so
you.
excited to see what you do next. So
Thank you so much.
good
It was
luck with
great
everything.
talking to you as well.